I got it. I figured this out. This is so awesome. All right, let's see. Ooh, lots of people popping in. This is exciting. Okay, so I am going to go see here if I got... Perfect. Hold on 1 second. I have no idea how to do that. I don't think that's going to work. Okay. Hopefully somebody on Facebook will figure out how to share that. I'm not sure. All right. So today we are going to tackle how to kind of get started with your weight loss journey and some simple tips to help you hit your calorie deficit. Now, for those of you who do not know me, I am Heather Robertson. I am host of the Half Size Me Show. I do a weekly podcast. I also have the Half Size Me community. And I am a weight loss life coach. So I do all of that. And I am here today to help you guys with some things that I've been seeing popping up over and over again. So thank you. And just to let you know, I am totally new to Periscope. This is my very first time doing this. But my understanding is that the little hearts means that you like what I'm doing or like what I'm saying. And hello. And that you are ultimately getting some value from this particular interaction that we are having. So I will hopefully figure out how to share this on Facebook so that way everybody will know how to do it, or I can show the broadcast after the fact. So we're going to talk today about the calorie deficit and kind of how to, hello, Danita. I want to first talk about some very simple ways that we can do this without it being a huge stressor, and what I do a lot with my coaching clients. So if right now you want to lose weight, a lot of people will go to the online calculators, or they will use something and they'll say, okay, this is how much I'm supposed to be eating. I find that a lot of times those are not 100% accurate, and a much better assessment of what you might need would be for you to just eat normally, eat what you normally eat, track it for about 2 weeks, and also watch your weight. See what your weight does. Does it stay the same? Does it trend up? Does it trend down? That kind of thing. I just had a client call with somebody on Monday, and what her calculation said was that she was supposed to be eating 1,800 to maintain her weight, but we actually found she was eating 2,200 and maintaining her weight. So that gave her a much higher calorie amount in order to begin to lose. So we looked at 2 weeks of eating, 2 weeks of weigh-ins, and then what we said was, what could we do to create a good amount for her to shoot for calorically and still lose weight but not be miserable, right? So first tip I want to give you is don't take a huge calorie deficit right off. You can always go lower. But most people want to just kind of do drastic cuts at first, and they end up being extremely miserable. So I would highly recommend you don't do that. Now, once you create the calorie deficit, a super, super easy way that you can maintain that through the week. And I know a lot of people are asking about weekends, like how do I navigate weekends? So what I would recommend to you is, let's just say hypothetically, you are burning 2,500 calories a day. Say you take 500 calories off of that every single day. And so your target is 2,000. Well, if you were to multiply that by 7, your weekly total budget is 14,000 calories, right? So it's almost like you get a paycheck once a week. I'm focusing on 14,000 calories for the week, which creates a deficit. Hello. And that would be the number you want to achieve by the end of the week. So that way, the reason this is really helpful is because so many people stress about hitting one specific number every day, like, the 1,200, the 1,500, whatever. They're like, gotta hit that number, gotta hit that number. And that can be really hard to hit on a daily basis. And with weekends and social get-togethers and going out for dinners and things like that, it can create a real problem. So I find that having that weekly budget, so that 14,000, what you can do is if you know over the weekend you're going to go out to eat or you're going to go, do something with somebody, you can take a large amount off the top. Just like if you were knowing you're going to Disney World for the weekend and you got your paycheck, you would take so much and put it aside for that weekend trip, right? Same idea. You take your calories, you put it aside, then you take what's left once you've pre-budgeted in for the weekend, and you can go ahead and average that out for the week, or you can kind of know roughly what amount you have to work with. Now, everyone is different. If you listen to your body, there's some days you're really, really hungry. Maybe you did a hard workout, you did a lot of activity. You might want to eat more on those days. On the other side of that, there's going to be the times where you ultimately are not as hungry, and maybe you're having a lower calorie range. So by having the weekly total to focus on, it relieves a lot of stress from you to feel like I've got to eat 1,500 every single day, whereas maybe one day you felt like eating 1,300, but then on the weekends you're going to go up to 2,500 because you've got these outings that you're going to go on, right? So the weekly budget, to my way of thinking and from what I've seen working with my clients, it relieves a lot of stress from your life. It's kind of like, okay, as long as I hit the 14,000 by the end of the week, I'm doing really, really well, So that's kind of a tip that works pretty well for everybody that I've seen thus far. It takes a lot of the stressors off the table. So that way you're focusing more on the total for the week. Now, a lot of people have asked, okay, so if I have this weekly total that I'm focusing on, and I know I'm taking roughly 300 or so calories off the table, the stress then becomes, how do I do that? And people get kind of weirded out when they see their see their calories going down, right? And I get that. Nobody likes to lose food. Totally understand. So I tell people all the time, look for simple swaps, just simple things you can do. So if I have a client who's making a certain dish and she's using full fat cheese, I'll say, would you be willing to swap that out to fat-free or reduced fat, right? Just simple little tweaks, nothing major. A little bit here, a little bit there. And that's all you have to do. A lot of times I'll pass up using full fat peanut butter and save myself the 200 calories. And I use the protein peanut powder instead. So, those are the simple kinds of things that you can do in order to help you hit that calorie deficit without it being really painful. Now, over time, you're going to make lots of little swaps here and there, and those will add up. But for this, just to get started, take those 2 weeks of food journals you had, go through them. And if you're not very good at this by yourself, maybe share it with a friend. Hey, as you're looking through my food journals, do you see a few places where if I were to clean up my eating a little or make some simple swaps, I could maybe shave off 300 calories a day or something to that effect? A lot of times I brainstorm with my clients and we say, okay, what if we were to replay this last 2 weeks? What changes in your diet could we have made to save those 300 calories? And sometimes it's just very simple swaps like full fat cottage cheese to 1%, things like that. Simple stuff. So I guess the gist of what I would recommend if you're trying to go minimal stress, spend 2 weeks getting to know yourself. Journal all your food, see where your calories are. Then I would recommend saying what is a reasonable deficit you're willing to take, not to kill yourself. We're not looking at you slashing 1,000 calories, taking a small amount off the top and then creating a weekly budget for yourself. Just like you would get a weekly paycheck, you get a weekly calorie target. And then, you could take that, average it out for every day. But if you are like most people, you have high and low days, and then you have weekends and vacations and holidays. It gives you the freedom and flexibility to say, you know what, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to just eat alfalfa sprouts and kale, rubbed kale salads over the weekend. I'm going to want to go out and have fun with my friends. So you can pre-budget those calories for that time. Then learn to live within the budget. How can you then live within the budget the rest of the time? Simple swaps. Try not to overdo it. And try not to, to completely remove all the food you love. That's the other tip I want to give you. Eat food you love. If you hate it, you're not going to do it. Let's be honest. I know. I've tried it multiple ways. Pick food you love, and then just make small tweaks to it. You know, instead of having the full calorie bread, go to the light bread. Simple stuff. Don't make it difficult for yourself. Now, I did have somebody ask a question on Instagram, how did I start? And I just want to kind of share that with you. For those of you that don't know, I have lost 170 pounds myself. I've kept it off now for over 4 years. And I really just started with walking. That was really all I did. For those of you who don't know and wanted some kind of insight, started with walking, started adding food to my diet. That was helpful food. So lots of fruits and vegetables, you know, really starting to bulk up my plates with veggies, things like that. So it wasn't about taking food away at first. It was actually about adding food in, which I know might sound a little strange, but when you have been yo-yo dieting and you've had a binge eating issue, adding food is a lot less stressful than taking more food away. So those would be another tip I would give you. If you are somebody who has been on the yo-yo cycle for a long time, you've eaten very restrictively for a long, long time, I would highly recommend that you look at maybe adding the healthy stuff in, start crowding that into your plate and learning to maybe like some different veggies as opposed to taking food away from yourself. I just talked to a client last night. She loves bagels. And she's like, well, I end up defaulting to bagels when I feel like I don't want to be quote unquote good. And I'm like, well, what if we had a bagel every day? And she's like, oh, I never thought of such a thing. And I'm like, yes, let's have half of a bagel every day. If it will keep you on a deficit, let's add the food that you enjoy, as opposed to taking the food away from you that you love, right? So in her mind, it was good or bad. I'm either good because I'm having veggies and eggs and avocado every morning, and I'm bad if I want to have my bagel. Well, I'm going to make the argument that thought process isn't getting you where you want to be, okay? So if you love bagels that much, and it could be anything for you, it could be pizza, ice cream, whatever, the black or white thinking, thank you. Instead of it being that, what if you had a half a bagel every day? What would happen? Would the world come to an end? I don't think so. Yes, there is this place between perfect and imperfect. It is the gray. It's the in-between. And what I always tell people is you would be better off if it would keep you hitting that calorie deficit continuously, living within that weekly calorie total, to have a half a bagel every single day. And that way you're getting your kind of your needs met, but you're also able to clear your head enough to continue to move on in the right direction. Whereas I see a lot of people say, nope, no bagel. Bagels aren't happening. They can't exist. I can't have them, until they end up having life happen. And then they really want the bagel and everything is off, right? The whole day is off. And that's what people tell me. And I'm sure you have said it too. If my day starts wrong, it ends wrong. Yes. Now, good question. So yes, I will take some questions. I think I covered most of what I wanted to share, which was the tips on how to get started. So if you have one, the imperfect diet you stick with is much better than the perfect diet you can't stick with. I agree 110%. There is really, I just talked to a coaching client about this morning. There is no perfect. She was really upset because we were going to take her 4-week averages and figure out what her calories were and what she was losing. And she started to have a really unraveled week. And she's like, and I just all of a sudden said, this can't be part of my average. And I'm like, why not? Is not life part of your average? Like, think about it. When do we all have stellar weeks every single week? We don't. That's the concept of taking your averages, your average weight, your average calories, because there's going to be the highs and there's going to be the lows. We're looking more for where do you tend to trend and fall, as opposed to you just doing it all correctly or doing it incorrectly. So yes, I will take any questions that you might have. And let me just check one thing really quick. All right, perfect. Okay, so I will take questions. Let's see here. I don't know if I missed anything when I stepped away. I'm sorry. Again, I'm new to Periscope, so just bear with me here. But yes, if you have any questions, whether they be about my own weight loss journey or anything that I can help you with, I would love to answer any questions. And specifically today I was planning on talking about calories and kind of, sticking with this not in a non-stressful way, but anything that you feel like you might need help with, I'm good to try and answer here. Hello. All right. Thank you, Kiki. Awesome. I love having the Eat More to Weigh Less ladies. They are wonderful. By the way, if you have not checked them out, go by and check them out. As a matter of fact, I love, and I don't know if she's still here now, but I love her calculator that she added to her website. So if you haven't had a chance to go by Eat More to Weigh Less, they've added a great new calculator to kind of figure out your daily energy expenditure, things like that. So if you, are looking for a good resource, there's one there as well. All right. How did you transition from walking to more strenuous exercise? Okay. From walking to more strenuous exercise, I did that a lot of trial and error. I went to the gym and I was focusing on, thank you. I started with walking, and then I went to the gym to try and take on some kind of like classes. I thought that would be a safe place. I started at about 280 pounds. I was actually over 300, but I walked and I got down to about 280. And then I went to take some classes, and I was focusing on the more cardio-based classes at first. But at that weight, with some medical issues I was struggling with, that was too much. So then I decided to try body pump, which I really loved. And I still even take it today. I love it. It's a great conditioning exercise. It's good for starting out with weight training. And what I loved about it at 280 pounds is my feet never left the ground. So when you weigh a lot more, the impact from the up and down movement, whether you're stepping on a step or whether you're trying to do things like plyometrics, things like that, does not feel good, and actually can cause sometimes injuries. So I did not want to get injured, and I didn't want to be in extreme pain. So I focused on strength training, and I stayed with body pump for a long time, and I was taking that about 2 to 3 times a week with the walking. That's all I did. And then I added other things in later. But ultimately, it was one of those things that was just kind of progressive. I just kept adding as I went, and the walks became longer, and they became more, obviously the intensity picked up as well. So the less you weigh, the faster you can walk, and the more covered distance you can cover. But I kept it extremely simple. I did not want to be injured. Seriously, weights are great to start with versus running because of the impact. Yes, and what happens mentally... body pump, good question. Okay, so body pump is a 55-minute weight training class, and it's all done. I actually think of it more like almost like a kind of a metabolic training, more so because you can't do truly heavy weights and for that long of a period of time, not with that many reps, you can't. So what it is you want to kind of focus on light to medium weights, and you're looking at lots of repetitions, and you're just kind of going at it, right? So, but the key with body pump is you don't want to be at the same weight 6 months from when you started at the exact same point. So if you're doing 20 pounds on chest press, you don't want to be doing 20 pounds 6 months later. You want to increase the weight, and that makes it much, much more difficult. But it's a fantastic cardio workout. You will burn serious fat doing this particular workout, and you will get toned, okay? I'm going to use air quotes there. You're going to get toned, because what will happen is if you're just starting, you've never lifted weights before, just putting your body under that resistance will cause muscle to start to grow. And you have to just trust the process in that one, because I will tell you now, at 280, 250 pounds, I did not see any muscle happening. It was a lot of the fat came off. Yes. Okay. So with the deficit, so the easiest and most effective way, I think, for you to find your own deficit is to know what your maintenance calories are. I had a client, she was using MyFitnessPal. They told her 1,800 calories. She tracked her food for 2 weeks, and she was actually averaging 2,200 calories. So the MyFitnessPal calculator, to me, is usually lower than it should be, okay, for most people. So when I knew she was doing about 2,200, I said, would you want to go down to 1,900 as your calories? That's basically a 300 calorie deficit. Okay, commenting on food. So anyway, I focused for her on taking that 300 calorie deficit. And then what we did is we took 1,900, we multiplied it times 7 days in the week, and we gave her a calorie target. So this is the amount of calories she's trying to hit in a 7-day cycle, because a lot of people like the flexibility of feeling like on Saturday and Sunday or a special occasion, they can eat more. And then there's other days where they're way more sedentary. Maybe they even skip a meal, or they have like a brunch instead of a lunch and a dinner. And it gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility, because there's some days you might eat a lot less and there's some days you might eat a lot more. But if you're hitting that weekly target, the deficit is already built into it. So that's kind of my no stress way of dealing with it. That way there's never a good day or a bad day, because if you're focusing on a 7-day total, you don't feel like there's a certain number every day you're supposed to be hitting. So a lot of like coaches and stuff, the macro coaches, they're going to say, here, eat this every single day. Very few people I have seen can really stick to that. They really struggle with that. So I recommend focusing more on a weekly grand total on calories. That way you it's kind of like a checks and balances kind of thing. Yes, it is hugely successful, especially if people have been yo-yo dieting, because what's happening is they get so beat down because they didn't hit that number that day. Oh, I didn't hit my 1600 or whatever. Or, oh my goodness, I'm going out to eat with my boyfriend this weekend. What should I do? You know, like that kind of thing. Well, this has all got that planned into it. You can choose how you want to allot those calories through the week. And I always tell people, whatever the budget is, if you know Saturday night is date night with hubby and you know you're going to take 3,000 calories to go out and enjoy the night with him, take it right off the top. Don't wait until then. Like if you know your budget's 14,000, take 3,000 off the top. Know that you have 11,000 for the other 6 days, and then make that work, right? So try and give yourself that freedom and flexibility. And I'm so sorry again, I'm new to Periscope, but there was a couple good questions that popped up, and I think I might have missed them. So if you want to retype them, I'm so used to having my chat. I do a webinar each week for my community, and the chat just stays there. And so I can always go back to it. So I'm going to kind of have to get used to that. But if you did have a question, I saw somebody had typed that they are kind of in the midway point of their journey and they wanted to ask me something, but I'm so sorry because I think I missed it. But yeah, so I think I caught all the other questions that I could. So yeah, basically try and be kind to yourself. Try and make this as stress-free as possible. Try and give yourself as much to eat, especially to start with, that you can to create a deficit. Give yourself that weekly budget so that way you're not feeling overwhelmed with hitting a daily target. Make simple swaps. All right. Oh, and somebody joined. So I'm going to wait here and just see if anybody, I'm in the middle of my journey, down 70 pounds. Ideal weight seems unrealistic. Good question or good statement. All right. So let me just say this. Don't stress about where everybody else wants you to get. A lot of times you might hear this word that goes around called natural weight. I don't know if anyone here has ever heard of that. A natural weight is a weight where you are much healthier probably than where you were, but ultimately it's a weight that you can carry without having to stress a lot. So, you know, you can look at the BMI charts, and you can look at body fat percentages and things like that. But ideally, my message to everybody is this: pick a weight that you can pretty effortlessly sustain. If it's going to require you to literally feel like you're on a diet every single day of your life and you're going to be miserable, then is that really worth you doing? So, you know, I tend to find a window, or talk to my clients about finding a window that they're comfortable with, that they can sustain and not feel like they're miserable. And then that's kind of what we focus on. So if you're already 70 pounds down, give yourself a freaking round of applause. That is amazing. That is a huge transformation in of itself. And then just take it 10 pounds at a time. When I was losing 170 pounds, I focused on 10-pound increments. Honestly, that's all I could focus on, right? 170 seemed overwhelming. I weigh less than I lost. So it was one of those that the idea of trying to think that way would have probably paralyzed me. So if you're already 70 down, just look at focusing on the next 10. See when you get to a weight that you like the way you look, you like the way you feel, activities can happen freely, you can sit where you want, you're not overthinking your size, you feel good in your clothes. All of those are important, less important what somebody else says, because here's the thing, you're the one that's going to have to maintain that weight. All right. Yes. And I love I like Weight Watchers. I think that is a great program. I especially love the tweaks they've made with increasing the protein. but they're one of the ones where I don't necessarily love how they handle the end of the journey. I think that a 2 pound window and ultimately having to get your doctor's approval to create a goal weight that might be higher than what they say makes me, I don't like that very well. So I would say, do what you're doing, focus on one thing at a time, getting down 10-pound increments, and then you make the call. You empower yourself. Because what I would say is that nobody else has to maintain this weight. You have to maintain this weight. So it's great that they have all these theories, charts, and ideas, but if you can't do it or you're doing it and you're really, really miserable, what's the point in doing that, right? So kind of focus at one stage at a time. Right now, you're in the losing phase. Just keep doing what you're doing. Focus on 10 pounds at a time. And then when you get closer to where you think you want to be, or you have your kind of ideal weight, try it out, see how you feel, and make that decision for yourself, because you're going to be maintaining way longer than you were losing. And you want to make sure that you pick a good maintenance range for yourself. All right, and I can take just a couple more questions, and then I'm going to have to vamoose. Oh, excuse me. All right. All right, and if there are no questions, then we are good to go. All right, let's see here. Got another person join. Thank you for joining. It's so cool to see so many people, and I recognize some names too, which is really nice. Do you recommend a special ratio of carbs to fats to protein? Honestly, my recommendation on macros is if you prioritize your protein, typically the fats and the carbs will fall into place based on your personal preference. So what I typically see are people that prioritize their carbs and their fats and not their protein. It's the other way around. And so if you think about most food, even when you go out to restaurants, right, most foods that we get is a larger quantity of carbohydrates, a larger quantity of fat, and a very usually small piece of protein, depending on the meal. So if we're talking specifically female clients, I always try and help them with their protein. If we can get the protein up, and they're hitting those protein targets, it typically puts the fats and the carbs into a better ratio. And really, it doesn't seem to become a huge issue until you get closer and closer to what would be your goal weight or a lower weight. And for most females, somewhere in the ballpark of 30 to 40% protein is a really good range to shoot for, depending on you, your makeup, what feels good to you. I've seen clients who struggle with binge eating and they actually prefer to be closer to the 40% mark. I have some females that struggle to hit 30%. So it really depends, but usually that 30 to 40% on the protein is a nice range in there for you to kind of try. And I wouldn't jump to that, so don't hear me say that and go, oh, going in, changing my macros. Don't do that. Check and see where you are with your protein, okay? And then if you find right now you're maybe only doing 15% protein or 20% protein, instead of going from that up to 30 to 40 and trying to almost double it, I would say add in 5 to 10 grams each week until you get there. So if right now you're only eating 20 grams or 20% of your dietary needs are coming from protein and you know that's an area you would like to start to improve, next week make 25% your focus, right? And that's usually going to be adding maybe another 10 to 15 grams. And then add again the next week until you get where you want to be. So often I hear people, they'll hear somebody say something like that and then they immediately go in and change everything. And I don't think that that's usually the best approach. I think it's better to see where you are, what you're accustomed to, and say, okay, right now I'm only getting X amount of grams in. I want to go ahead and bump that up a little bit. How about I eat an extra half a cup of cottage cheese for my mid-morning snack and maybe throw in an extra gram or ounce of chicken with my dinner. Simple, easy peasy. That's one way that you can get it to go up without feeling like you're having to completely just protein shake it down all day, or something to that effect. So I would recommend you maybe focusing on the protein element, less strict about the carbs and the fats because each person's different. Some people like a little bit more carbs, a little less fat. Some people like a little bit more fat, a little less carbs. And I kind of find if you have the calorie goal, which if you're thinking hierarchy of weight loss, hierarchy of fat loss, calorie goal has to be number one. Under that, I find that the macros come into play, but more than anything, that protein being in the right place is important. All right. And I think, yeah, all right, good. I'm glad I got to answer that question. No worries. I'm glad to help you out. And I'm excited to be doing Periscope videos now. So now that I'm figuring out how to do this, it's going to be great. Oh, thank you guys for coming by. All right, I will be sharing this or keeping this available for, I think, was it 24 hours? That's what they told me on Periscope. It's for 24 hours. And then I will try and see if I can archive these for you as well. So I'm not really sure how that works, but I will learn. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me on my very first Periscope video. And I am looking forward to many more. I'm going to try and do one a week. So I will be back. And then if you know anybody who needs this kind of help, please feel free to share it. Also, the podcast, go to halfsizeme.com. You can share the podcast as well. And I would love to hear from you. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much.